Good morning and welcome to NEK-TV Rocks. My guest today is Karen Ward, who is a financial advisor with
Edward Jones.
I keep screwing up the name, and it's really not that I don't know. For some reason I keep screwing it up. And we're going to talk about women and money, that substance that most of us don't have enough of.
Yes.
So tell us a bit about what you do.
So yes, I do work for Edward Jones as a financial advisor. And I work with my clients to really understand what's important to them so that we can put together a strategy using a proven process to help them reach their financial goals. Once we get that strategy defined, I partner with them for the long term to make sure that they stay on track.
So from the perspective of somebody who spent her working years with mostly nonprofits, earning significantly less than for-profit organizations, not always actually, but significantly less, and as a woman getting paid less than men, how could I have made it different for myself? And that's really where I'm hoping we're going to go with this today.
Yeah, so time matters.
Mm-hmm.
In a couple different aspects. One, when you are working for nonprofits, you are making less money. The one thing that you should think about is when you're younger, start saving, even if it's a small amount.
Mm-hmm.
So I recall when I first started working, I did not make much money, but there was someone who said to me, $300 a week, right? Let's just say I was making $300 a week, and
that's still about the living wage for people up here.
Someone said to me, Karen, just put 3% a week or a month, whatever, into a retirement account. It's $9, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then every year you increase it. And so when you're young and you're not making a lot of money, it's still so important to just put that minimal amount away because time will help that grow.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the rule of 72. If you wait 10 years, if you invest $100, 10 years later at 7.2% rate of return, it's going to be doubled. So every 7.2 years, your money will double if you don't put anything else into it. So that's one aspect of time for women. But let's say you're in your 50s and now you're thinking about retiring and you really haven't saved enough money to retire. Again, it's about time. You need to start putting something away as much as you can. And you're going to probably have to work longer so that you do have more time.
Right. And what I see happening so often is because people who have been in a job, say, for a really long time, they're the ones who get canned. It's really common that people who have worked for a firm for a long time are the first ones out the door when there's, quote, right sizing. Isn't that the in phrase?
It is.
And
yes.
then they hire younger people who they can pay a fraction of what they were paying. And the people who got kicked out in their 50s, I have a particular friend for whom this happened, who has never been able to consistently find work since then. And that's true for so many who get canned in their 50s.
Yeah, that is true. And you do need to consider a lot of, when you leave a job, whether it's your choice or not, and you have saved, usually if you've worked for a corporation, you've saved some money for retirement. And one of the things that people do is they sometimes take that money out of retirement to live on.
Right.
And that is just, such a difficult situation, but that is just usually not a good idea, right? It is rarely, changing your lifestyle, spending less, There's penalties if you take money out before you're 59 and a half in most cases. So really trying to preserve that which you have saved is wise. There's time, there's how much you save, and
unfortunately, though, if you're trying to claim benefits, not unemployment, but anything else, so if for example, if you've been laid off, you have kids, you're needing to collect something.
you do.
You can't leave that money because that gets swept up in the, well, you've still got money there. Is there a way of making any of that exempt, do you know?
I don't know if you can make it exempt.
Yeah.
But usually when people are looking at getting services, my experience has been they look at your income.
Right.
And because it's in a retirement account, there is no income associated with it. So in general, that should be.
So that may be safe.
It could be. It depends on, what agency and what they're looking at. So women do have some unique challenges.
Yeah.
One, you're correct. Women tend to make less money than men.
I can bring out the statistics. It's horrifying. But this is 2017.
In general, it's 85% of what men make. And they live longer.
Right.
So they actually need more money.
Right.
Their Social Security is usually less than men's. And the reason is because they made less money, but women also step out of the workforce to take care of children and stop their savings. And what I would say to women that are married and or have a significant other is that when you do step out of the workforce, don't stop that saving in your name. Don't stop it. That's important. You need to pay yourself.
Yeah,
so
and that's so important. If anybody had ever said that to me when I was really in the workforce, and say in my 30s or 20s, it would have rung a bell for me, but I never heard anything like that.
Yeah, so the lack of education, especially for, I think, with women, is something that I am striving, at least in the Northeast Kingdom, to rectify. So I've done several seminars specifically for women in the past year. And I do that because they do seem to be less informed, and to no fault of their own.
Right.
It's not their focus. But I'm here to say it needs to be their focus at all ages.
Yes.
Because you do need to know that it's so important to save your own money when you are younger.
Right.
Whether it's outliving a spouse or through divorce or, women end up usually getting the short end, and you need to make sure you're protecting yourself.
Yeah.
Saving your own money, really understanding your finances. Most women don't understand. They oftentimes allow their spouse to handle it all and just think that they're going to be protected.
Right.
And it's not about not trusting. It's about wanting to really know and understand it. So for women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, please pay attention. Pay attention to what you have in your retirement. Don't just rely on your husband.
Do you ever get to go into, say, the high school? Because that's where to start with this.
It so is, and I actually have not talked to high school students. I do have a group of younger women that I do talk to every quarter, and that has been so rewarding because I do get them saying things like, oh, I am going to go open a Roth, It's like, it's so rewarding to hear that when they learn about the importance and how much money does grow over time with not a lot of input. But I will tell you, the other thing for women, and the reason that they do need more money than men, so they make less, they live longer, they're much more likely to need long-term care. So, there's just these factors. I think the statistic is there are, nursing home patients are 70% women.
Yes, it's true.
70%. Women over the age of 65, 70% of them will have a long-term care event in their life. So it's important to either plan for that or insure against it. And you can do both. You can do either, you can do both. But I do understand that saving for it when you do have limited resources is harder. But look, you start now. You look at the spending, you can, I have had people come in saying they could not cut their spending. There are ways. And you just need to be diligent and make yourself a priority. And a lot of times for women, we don't do that.
Right.
We make our kids a priority.
Exactly.
Right? I'll have people come in that are, clients that are helping their children and, sending checks to their children, and they're not taking care of themselves.
Right.
And I don't see that as much in the men. Women tend to be caretakers.
Well, that's how we're socialized.
Exactly.
We're so well trained.
Yeah. The other issue women have is they're much more conservative when it comes to investing. And I think that probably comes from lack of knowledge as well.
It's scary. I mean, if we're not used to handling money, and I can use myself as an example here, if you don't have much money, you're not used to handling money. And when you think about investing, you hear, in your head, you hear the gambling component of that, because we know it's a gamble.
Yeah.
It then gets really scary. It's okay, so I may earn less if I invest with X, but why? I could lose it all.
Yeah. So it's first, it is, I guess it could be called gambling if you were investing in just stocks and maybe a few. I don't look at it as gambling only because, if you look at the history of the stock market, and if you have a diverse portfolio and you're in stocks and bonds, and then I feel that, that's probably not gambling's not really the right word.
It's not like going to the casino. It's
no. But I will say, one of the things that we do when we meet with clients is we really try to understand how risk adverse they are. And I always use this litmus test. If it's going to keep you awake at night, we're not going to do it, right? I want you to be able to sleep. So I do try to educate my clients on the difference between the returns and people want 10% return with no risk. It's not going to happen, right?
Oh,
but,
really?
I know, it would be great. But getting a 5, 6, 7% return, over time, that's pretty normal and pretty average.
It's certainly not what you get by putting money into a CD or an IRA.
No, absolutely. CDs right now are pretty low. And as long as interest rates are low, then you're guaranteed, that's called guaranteed income. The guaranteed income products are low, 1, 2%. So I'll give you an example. If you're 50 years old and you have $100,000, that money will double by the time you turn 60. That'll be $200,000, right? At a 7.2% return. At a 4% return, that money will double when you're 68 versus 60. So you really need to think about, the difference. And 2%, forget it. That takes 36 years to double, right? And that's what you're getting in a 5-year CD is 2%. So
if that.
Yeah, right.
I say the last time I looked, it was way below that.
Yeah. So you really do, and women tend to go to they want guarantees, and we really, I think, with education, it helps, and we can get people to take a little bit more risk, understand that, the market goes up and down.
Right.
But in general, over time, if you have time, then you'll see an increase in your portfolio.
I read something yesterday that said 50% of people who own stocks are in the top 50% of sort of income earners.
Yeah.
Below that, nobody has them. And of that 50%, 80% of that is in the top 1 and 2%.
Probably.
That's pretty pathetic for the rest of us.
Well, I think again, though, those are choices, right? If you're in stocks, and there's choice, but you also have to have money to invest.
Right.
But, I mean, you can invest with very little money and own stocks.
Right. I had a friend years ago who actually did really well with, quote, penny stocks. I mean, I don't know if those are even possible anymore.
They are. They are.
Yeah.
Those are your really high risk, categories. I don't deal with them.
She did it for fun.
That's
and
more like you're gambling.
Yeah, and she had a really small amount to invest,
Sure.
but she figured that was worth it, and she actually made some money.
Yeah. No, those are kind of day trader kind of things.
Yeah.
And at Edward Jones, we are really focused on the long-term investor.
So it's a much more conservative company in that sense.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. We want to make sure that what we are investing in is, high quality, long-term.
Right.
And we have we have an investment group that looks at every single investment that we offer to make sure that what we are offering is a high quality product. Yeah, we don't do penny stocks. No.
Right. What do you think about the idea of when you filed your taxes, you get your tax return, that be the money that gets invested as opposed to buying all those gifts you really wanted but didn't need?
Absolutely. So we get a lot of people that come in with a tax return.
Yeah.
And, in an IRA, which is an individual retirement account, not through your employer, but through an Edward Jones or other brokerage firm, you can put in, if you're under age 50, you can put up to $5,500 a year in an IRA, either a traditional or a Roth. And they're just taxed differently. So if you're over 50, there's the catch-up rule, and you can put an additional $1,000 a year, and so you could put up to $6,500. And yes, we have clients that get their tax return or get a bonus, and they'll bring a check in. But I find that those that do the best are the ones that have an automatic monthly check come directly from their savings account or their checking account, even as little as $50 a month. Come in and just automatically gets invested. Those actually are the folks that tend to do the best.
So if people look at their women particularly look at their annual budget, so whatever form we call that, because we sort of have numbers in our heads even if we're not really organized and do it on pencil and paper, that could be one of those monthly expenses that gets factored in.
Absolutely. It's paying yourself. Yeah. Because your Social Security isn't necessarily going to be enough.
Tell me about it.
And, the other issue with Social Security is everyone seems to think you should take it at age 62. And that's so usually not the right financial decision. In some cases it is, but in many cases, waiting until you're 70 is really the right option.
If you have enough money to live until then without that pittance.
If you do. So we have...
And many of us don't.
We call looking at it through a lens. LENS is the acronym, lens. So you first look at longevity, right? If you are ill and you don't think you're going to live that long, then sure, taking it early makes sense. But if you have longevity in your family and you're going to live past 80, then it makes sense to wait.
Right.
And then E is for employment. How long do you plan to work? You don't want to take Social Security when you're 62 if you're still working, because they're going to take some back. So you really want to be careful about taking it early if you're still employed. And then N is for need. Like you said, you may have to have it because you can't work or you're not making enough, so there is the need. And the last,
The S?
the, the S. So, lens, right? Life expectancy, employment, need, and then S is just security, right? How secure are you?
Mhm.
And
As
yeah.
women, we're probably not very secure.
Yeah, right, right. So you definitely need to talk to a financial advisor. You will get 32% more by waiting 5 years from 60. If you, let's say you're 60, you're eligible. I think now people are eligible at like 66 or 66 and a
Mhm.
half. If you wait till 70, you're going to get almost 30 or over 30% more.
Wow.
If you take it at 62, you are going to take a 30% hit.
Mm-hmm.
So if at 65 it was $1,000 a month, at 62 you're only going to get $700 a month, and that's for the rest of your life.
And that's not livable.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's challenging. So your advice to somebody in their 20s right now would be?
save. I mean, I have to tell you, I personally, because you have the time on your side, it is so much more important to save now than it is later, because that money is got time on its side to
Right.
grow. So even if it's the smallest amount, save now. Always save as much as your employer will match.
Mm.
So if you have to save 3% to get 3% from your employer, you
Save it.
have to. People will tell me they can't afford it. I'm like, you can't afford not to. It's like flushing money down the toilet. You
Mhm.
you have to get that employer match. They are giving you money.
There's a lot of employers who don't do the match. Unfortunately.
Yes, there are. There are. But if you can get the match,
Go for it.
go for
That-
it.
which absolutely
Most important.
makes sense.
Even if you don't get a match, doesn't matter. You should be saving for retirement
Yeah.
when you start working.
How do people who have kids, who are young, who are earning, not high earners, how do you even begin to save then?
I was, like I said, a single mom, $300 a week, and I
Yeah.
saved 3%. It's $9.
Yeah.
You can do it. You will find it. You know what? You may have to scrimp in, save a little more,
Mm-hmm.
but, you know, start with 3%. Just start. And then every year, go up 1%. And that's
Yeah.
what I did. So, yeah.
Did you get the money? Practical question here. Did you get the money out of your own hands and somewhere else? Because if I, quote, save money and I put it in my sock drawer or wherever. the
Oh,
equivalent
no.
is,
It has to be an
serious.
automatic.
Yeah.
You can never see it. And that's the only way most people can do it, is
Yeah.
you never see it. It just goes right from your check,
Somewhere else.
right. And that's how I had to do it.
Yeah.
I could have never gotten the money, cashed a check, and taken money to somebody. That just wasn't me.
Or me, or
Yeah.
or probably anybody else. I mean,
Right.
let's get real here.
That's right. It has to be like any other, it has to be like, you know, they take Social Security out automatically and Medicare
Mhm.
automatically right out of your check. They just take it right out of your check and have it invested.
Is there a way for people to do that who don't have matching programs at their place
Yes,
of work?
most employers, well, some employers will offer that. If not,
Mhm.
like at Edward Jones, we'll go in and we will automatically either take it out of your paycheck if your payroll department
Mhm.
will do that, and if not, we can take it directly from your bank on the day that check gets deposited.
That's actually useful because
Yes.
you're so right. I mean, if I got my hands on those $9,
You betcha.
I would have found a use for them.
Right.
So would you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's a really good way of doing that.
Yeah. So if you're in your 20s, absolutely.
Yeah.
As you get older and have a family
Mhm.
and you're married, you may think that you need to stop saving for yourself to save for your children's college. Don't do that. Don't do that. Make sure you're still paying for yourself. If you can afford to save for your children's college as well,
Mhm.
fantastic. Fantastic. But, again, make sure you're taking care of you.
Yeah, I think that's probably the hardest thing for women to do.
It is.
We are so socialized into taking care of everybody else.
Yeah,
That's our responsibility. It's our job, and
it is.
somehow we've bought that. But we can't do that if we can't take care of ourselves.
No, because you are going to live longer.
Right.
You are going to potentially need long-term care, and your Social Security check is likely to be less than your husband's.
We, unfortunately, are out of time. This goes so fast.
Yes.
How can people get hold of you if they'd like to have you come in and talk to their business?
Sure.
Or go into the high school or anywhere
Absolutely.
else?
So I do seminars. I will go into the businesses. Anyone that would just like to speak with me one-on-one, everything is complimentary. We don't charge any fees. People think they have to pay to get advice. You don't. So you can contact me at my office at 487-9937 and schedule some time.
Great. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.